The scent of burnt toast pulled me from my reverie. I rushed to the kitchen, waving away the wisps of smoke rising from the toaster. Another breakfast ruined. I sighed, tossing the charred remains into the trash. It wasn't like Sam to forget about his morning ritual of perfectly golden toast and coffee. But lately, nothing about Sam seemed familiar. "Mom, is everything okay?" Emily's voice drifted down the stairs, tinged with concern. "Just fine, honey," I called back, forcing cheerfulness into my tone. "Your dad's toast got a little too crispy. I'll make him a fresh batch." As I popped 2 new slices into the toaster, I heard Sam's heavy footsteps descending the stairs. He appeared in the doorway, already dressed for work, his face buried in his phone. "Morning, Sam," I said, offering a smile. "Coffee's ready." He grunted in response, barely glancing up as he grabbed his travel mug and filled it. I frowned, watching him. 14 years of marriage, and this is what we'd come to? Grunts and burnt toast? "Dad," Emily said, bounding into the kitchen with all the energy of her 16 years. "Don't forget, Mom's birthday is next week. We need to plan something special." Sam's head snapped up, a flicker of something. Was it panic? Crossing his face. "Right, of course," he muttered. "We'll figure something out." I felt a twinge in my chest. He'd forgotten. Again. "Actually," I interjected, trying to keep my voice light, "I was thinking we could all go to that new Italian place downtown. The 3 of us, like old times." Sam's phone buzzed, and he glanced down at it, his brow furrowing. "Listen, I've got to run. Big meeting this morning. We'll talk about it later, okay?" Before I could respond, he was out the door, leaving behind the scent of his cologne and the ache of disappointment. Emily turned to me, her eyes narrowing. "He's being weird again, isn't he?" I plastered on a smile. "But your father's just busy, sweetie. Work's been stressful lately." She didn't look convinced, but mercifully let it drop. "I've got to go, too. Chess club meeting before school." As Emily gathered her things, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. Sam's distance, his forgetfulness, the way he seemed to be slipping away from us. It was like trying to hold on to smoke. "Mom?" Emily's voice pulled me back to the present. She was standing by the door, backpack slung over one shoulder, concern etched on her young face. "Are you sure you're okay?" I nodded, forcing another smile. "Of course, honey. Have a great day at school." As soon as the door closed behind her, I sagged against the counter. The house felt too big, too quiet. I glanced at the calendar hanging on the fridge, my eyes landing on next week's date circled in red. My birthday, our anniversary, 14 years. Had it really been that long? I closed my eyes, remembering the day Sam proposed. We'd been so young, so in love. What had happened to that couple? The shrill ring of the phone startled me. I answered without checking the caller ID. "Hello. Mia, darling." The saccharine voice of my mother-in-law, Nancy, filled my ear. "I hope I'm not interrupting anything." I bit back a sigh. "Not at all, Nancy. What can I do for you?" "Oh, I just wanted to remind you about Sam's big presentation next week. You'll make sure he has a proper breakfast that morning, won't you? You know how important this is for his career." I gritted my teeth, anger flaring in my chest. Of course, she'd remember Sam's work event, but not our anniversary. "I always make sure Sam has a good breakfast, Nancy." Of course," she said, her tone dismissive. "Well, I'll let you go. Take care, dear." The line went dead before I could respond. I set the phone down, my hands shaking slightly. Something was definitely wrong. Sam's distance, Nancy's thinly veiled disdain, the secrets that seemed to be piling up around me. I took a deep breath, squaring my shoulders. It was time to find out what was really going on in my family, and I knew just where to start. The day of our anniversary dawned bright and clear, but the atmosphere in our house was anything but sunny. I'd spent the past week dropping hints, hoping against hope that Sam would remember. But as I watched him rush through his morning routine, my heart sank. He hadn't even wished me a happy birthday, let alone mentioned our anniversary. "Sam," I said, my voice barely above a whisper, "do you know what day it is?" He glanced at his watch, frowning. "Tuesday, isn't it? I've got that big presentation today." I felt my chest tighten. "It's our anniversary, Sam, and my birthday." His eyes widened for a moment, then he shook his head. "God, Mia, I'm sorry. I've been so swamped at work. Can we celebrate this weekend?" Before I could respond, Emily burst into the kitchen. "Happy birthday, Mom." She enveloped me in a hug, then turned to glare at her father. "Dad, don't tell me you forgot. Again." Sam had the decency to look ashamed. I didn't forget, Look, we'll do something special this weekend, okay? I promise. Emily's eyes narrowed. Like you promised last year? And the year before that? Emily, I warned, not wanting to escalate the situation. But my daughter wasn't backing down. No, Mom, this isn't fair. Dad, you can't keep treating Mom like this. It's not right. Sam's face hardened. That's enough, Emily. This is between your mother and me. Is it? Emily shot back. Because it seems like you don't care about either of us anymore. The tension in the room was palpable. I watched as Sam's jaw clenched, his eyes darting between Emily and me. For a moment, I thought he might explode. Instead, he grabbed his briefcase and headed for the door. I don't have time for this, he muttered. I'll be late for work. As the door slammed behind him, Emily turned to me, her eyes brimming with tears. I'm sorry, Mom. I shouldn't have said anything. I pulled her into a hug, fighting back my own tears. It's okay, sweetie. You were just standing up for me. We stood there for a moment, holding each other. When Emily pulled away, there was a determined look in her eyes that I'd never seen before. This isn't right, Mom, she said quietly. Something's going on with Dad, and I'm going to find out what it is. I felt a chill run down my spine. Emily, honey, I appreciate your concern, but this is adult stuff. You don't need to get involved. She shook her head. I'm not a kid anymore, Mom. I can see what's happening, and I'm not going to sit by and watch Dad hurt you. Before I could argue further, she grabbed her backpack and headed out. I was left alone in the kitchen, my mind reeling. What had happened to my family? When had things gotten so bad that my teenage daughter felt she needed to protect me? The phone rang, startling me out of my thoughts. It was Nancy. Mia, dear, she said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. I hope you're not too disappointed about Sam forgetting your anniversary. You know how men can be. I gritted my teeth. It's fine, Nancy. We're going to celebrate this weekend. She laughed, the sound grating on my nerves. Oh, I wouldn't count on that. Sam mentioned he might have to work late. Such a shame. As I hung up the phone, a terrible thought occurred to me. What if Sam hadn't forgotten at all? What if he was deliberately avoiding our anniversary? I glanced at the calendar, my eyes landing on the circled date. 14 years of marriage, and this is what we'd come to. Forgotten anniversaries, tense silences, and a daughter determined to uncover her father's secrets. Something had to change. And as I stood there in my empty kitchen, I made a decision. If Sam wouldn't fight for our marriage, then I would. Even if it meant uncovering truths I wasn't sure I was ready to face. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong in my family. Sam's coldness, Nancy's thinly veiled hostility, and now Emily's determination to uncover the truth. It all pointed to a storm brewing just beneath the surface of our seemingly perfect life. As I tidied up the kitchen, my mind raced with possibilities. Was Sam having an affair? Was he planning to leave us? The thought made my stomach churn. The sound of the front door opening startled me out of my reverie. Emily burst in, her face flushed with excitement. Mom, you won't believe what I found out, she exclaimed, dropping her backpack on the floor. I felt a mixture of curiosity and dread. What is it, honey? Emily hesitated, biting her lip. I followed Dad after school today. He didn't go back to work like he said he would. My heart sank. Emily, you shouldn't be spying on your father. But Mom, listen. She pulled out her phone, tapping furiously. I saw him meet this woman at a cafe. They looked close, too close. She held out her phone, showing me a blurry photo. My breath caught in my throat. There was Sam, sitting at a table with a young, attractive blonde woman. Their heads were bent close together, his hand resting on hers. Oh, Emily, I whispered, my voice breaking. You shouldn't have seen this. Her eyes flashed with determination. Someone had to do something, Mom. Dad's been lying to us, and I'm going to prove it. I felt a surge of pride mixed with fear. My daughter was so brave, so loyal, but I was terrified of what her investigation might uncover. Sweetie, I appreciate what you're trying to do, but this isn't your responsibility, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Your father and I will work things out. Emily shook her head stubbornly. No, Mom. You've been saying that for months, and nothing's changed. I'm not going to sit back and watch him hurt you anymore. Before I could respond, we heard the sound of a car pulling into the driveway. Sam was home early. Quick, hide the phone, I hissed, my heart racing. Emily slipped it into her pocket just as Sam walked through the door. He paused, looking between us suspiciously. "What's going on here?" I forced a smile. "Nothing, dear. Emily was just telling me about her day at school." Sam's eyes narrowed, but he didn't push it. "Right. Well, I've got some work to finish up in my study. Don't wait up for me for dinner." As he disappeared upstairs, Emily turned to me, her eyes blazing. "See, Mom? More lies. He wasn't at work. He was with that woman." I felt torn between my instinct to protect my daughter and my growing suspicion that she might be right. "Emily, please, promise me you won't do anything rash. Let me handle this." She hesitated, then nodded reluctantly. "Okay, Mom, but if you don't do something soon, I will." That night, as I lay awake in bed, Sam sighed cold and empty beside me, I couldn't stop thinking about the photo Emily had shown me. Who was that woman? What did she mean to Sam? I heard the creak of Sam's office door opening, followed by his hushed voice. He was on the phone again, speaking in low, urgent tones. Unable to resist, I crept to the hallway, straining to hear. "Can't keep this up much longer, Lisa," Sam was saying. "Mia's getting suspicious, and Emily's been asking questions. We need to move up our timeline." My blood ran cold. Lisa, the woman from the cafe, and a timeline? What were they planning? I know, Sam continued, his voice dropping even lower. "But we have to be careful. If Mia finds out before we're ready, she could ruin everything." I stumbled back to bed, my mind reeling. Sam was definitely having an affair, but it was more than that. They were planning something that could destroy our family. As I lay there in the dark, tears silently streaming down my face, I made a decision. Emily was right. It was time to uncover the truth, no matter how painful it might be. Tomorrow, I would start my own investigation, and God help Sam if what I discovered was as bad as I feared. The next morning, I woke with a sense of purpose I hadn't felt in months. Sam had already left for work, or so he claimed. I couldn't be sure of anything anymore. I waited until Emily left for school before starting my investigation. My hands shook as I entered Sam's study, a room that had become increasingly off-limits over the past few months. I felt like an intruder in my own home. As I rifled through his desk drawers, my heart pounding, I came across a stack of bank statements. My eyes widened as I scanned the numbers. Large sums of money had been transferred to an account I didn't recognize. Was this how Sam was funding his affair? The sound of the front door opening made me jump. I quickly shoved the papers back into the drawer and rushed out of the study. "Mom?" Emily called. "Are you home?" I took a deep breath, composing myself before answering. "In the kitchen, honey. What are you doing home so early?" Emily appeared in the doorway, her face pale. "I skipped last period. I need to show you something." She pulled out her phone, her fingers trembling slightly, as she pulled up a series of text messages. I hacked into Dad's phone records." "Emily," I gasped, torn between shock at her actions and dread at what she might have discovered. I know. But look, Mom." She thrust the phone into my hands. As I scrolled through the messages, my world tilted on its axis. There were dozens of texts between Sam and someone named Lisa. The same Lisa I'd heard him talking to on the phone. "He's planning to leave us, Mom," Emily whispered, her voice breaking. "He and Lisa, they're talking about buying a house together." I felt like I couldn't breathe. All those times Sam had been working late or on business trips flashed through my mind. How long had this been going on? "There's more," Emily said, her voice barely audible. "Grandma Nancy is involved somehow. Look at these messages." I scrolled further, my hands shaking. There it was, in black and white. Nancy was helping Sam plan his exit strategy. They were discussing lawyers, asset division, even custody arrangements for Emily. "Oh, God," I whispered, sinking into a chair. "How could they do this to us?" Emily knelt beside me, taking my hand. "We can't let them get away with this, Mom. We have to fight back." I looked at my daughter, seeing the fierce determination in her eyes. She was so young, yet she was showing more strength than I felt capable of at that moment. "You're right," I said, squeezing her hand. "But we need to be smart about this. We can't let them know we're on to them." Just then, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Sam. "Working late tonight? Don't wait up." I showed it to Emily, who scoffed. "Yeah, right. Working late with Lisa, more like." An idea struck me. "Emily, do you think you could track his phone? Find out where he really is?" She nodded, a glint in her eye. "Already on it, Mom. I installed a tracking app on his phone last week." I felt a mixture of pride and concern at my daughter's resourcefulness. Okay, here's what we're going to do. We'll gather as much evidence as we can. Bank statements, phone records, everything. But we have to be careful. If Sam or Nancy suspect anything, they might accelerate their plans. Emily nodded solemnly. I won't let you down, Mom. We're in this together. As we sat there, plotting our next move, I felt a surge of determination. Sam and Nancy thought they could destroy our family without a fight. They were about to learn how wrong they were. One more thing, I said, my voice steady. We need to find out who this Lisa is. If she's working with Sam, she might have access to information we don't. Emily's eyes lit up. Leave that to me. I'll do some digging at Dad's office tomorrow after school. I hesitated, worried about involving Emily too deeply, but I realized I needed her help. We were in this together, mother and daughter against the world. As night fell and Sam still hadn't returned home, I made a decision. It was time to take control of my life and protect what was mine. Whatever Sam and Nancy were planning, they were about to discover that Mia Anderson was not a woman to be underestimated. The next few days were a blur of covert operations and mounting tension. Emily and I moved like spies in our own home, gathering evidence and piecing together the puzzle of Sam's betrayal. But nothing could have prepared me for what happened next. It was a quiet Sunday afternoon when Sam announced he was taking Emily out for ice cream. My daughter shot me a knowing look before leaving with her father. I knew she was planning to confront him, to try and get more information. My heart raced as I watched them drive away. Hours passed, and the silence in the house became oppressive. Just as I was about to call Emily's cell, I heard the front door open. Sam's voice drifted in, uncharacteristically warm and jovial. That was fun, wasn't it, sweetheart? We should do this more often. Emily's response was muffled, but I could hear the strain in her voice. When they entered the living room, I was shocked by what I saw. Emily's eyes were red-rimmed, and she wouldn't meet my gaze. Sam, on the other hand, was beaming. Mia, honey, he said, his tone sickeningly sweet. Emily and I had a great talk. She understands now that sometimes adults need to make difficult decisions for the good of the family. I felt my blood run cold. What are you talking about, Sam? He put his arm around Emily's shoulders, and I saw her flinch. Tell your mother what we discussed, sweetheart. Emily looked up, her eyes filled with tears and something else, fear. Mom, she said, her voice barely above a whisper, I think maybe it would be best if I went to live with Dad and Grandma Nancy for a while. The world tilted beneath my feet. What? Emily, what are you saying? Sam's grip on Emily's shoulder tightened. Now, Mia, don't get upset. Emily and I agree that she needs a more stable environment. You've been, well, let's just say you haven't been yourself lately. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. How had Sam managed to turn my own daughter against me? Emily, honey, you don't mean that. What did he say to you? Before Emily could respond, Sam cut in. That's enough, Mia. You're only proving my point. Emily, why don't you go to your room? Your mother and I need to talk. As soon as Emily was out of earshot, I rounded on Sam. What the hell did you do to her? What lies have you been telling? Sam's facade of kindness vanished. Face it, Mia. You're losing control. Emily sees it, I see it, and soon everyone else will too. It's time to face facts. You're not fit to be a mother anymore. I felt like I'd been slapped. You bastard, I hissed. You're trying to take my daughter away from me. He smirked, a cold, calculated expression that sent chills down my spine. I'm doing what's best for Emily, and if you try to fight this, I'll make sure everyone knows just how unstable you've become. As Sam walked away, leaving me stunned and shaking, I heard a soft sound from the stairway. Emily stood there, her face pale but determined. She held up her phone, and I realized with a jolt that she had recorded the entire conversation. I'm so sorry, Mom, she whispered. I had to make him think I was on his side, but I got it all. Everything he said, everything he threatened. Relief washed over me, quickly followed by a surge of fierce pride. My daughter, my brave, clever girl, had outmaneuvered Sam at his own game. I pulled Emily into a tight hug, feeling her trembling against me. It's okay, sweetheart. You did good, but now we need to act fast. As we stood there, holding each other, I knew we had reached a turning point. Sam had shown his true colors, and there was no going back. It was time to take the gloves off and fight with everything we had. I looked into Emily's eyes, seeing the same determination reflected there. "Pack a bag," I said quietly. "We're leaving tonight. It's not safe here anymore." Emily nodded, her jaw set. "Where will we go?" I took a deep breath, my mind racing. "I have an idea, but first we need to make a stop. It's time we paid a visit to Lisa." My heart pounded as Emily and I crept down the stairs, our packed bags slung over our shoulders. Sam's snores echoed from the bedroom, oblivious to our escape plan. Just as we reached the front door, my phone buzzed. I froze, terrified it might wake Sam, but the snoring continued uninterrupted. Glancing at the screen, I saw it was a call from Emily's phone. Confused, I looked at my daughter, who shrugged, her own phone clutched tightly in her hand. With trembling fingers, I answered the call. "Hello?" I whispered. "Mom?" Emily's voice came through the speaker, but it wasn't the Emily standing next to me. This voice was panicked, breathless. "Mom, help me. Dad's gone crazy. He's talking about taking me away, saying you're unfit. I'm scared, Mom. I don't know what to do." I felt the blood drain from my face. Sam must have cloned Emily's phone, creating this recording to use against me. But why was it calling me now? Suddenly, the bedroom door flew open. Sam stood there, his face a mask of triumph. "Got you," he snarled. "Kidnapping our daughter in the middle of the night? Tsk, tsk, tsk. Mia, that's not going to look good in court." Emily stepped forward, her voice steady despite her pale face. "It's not kidnapping if I want to leave, Dad, and I have proof of what you're really up to." Sam's eyes widened for a moment before narrowing dangerously. "Give me that phone, Emily, now." "No," I shouted, pushing Emily behind me. "You're not touching her or her phone. It's over, Sam. We know everything. About Lisa, about your plans with your mother. It's all recorded." For a moment, Sam looked genuinely frightened. Then his face hardened. "You've got nothing," he spat. "It's your word against mine. And who do you think they'll believe? The respected businessman or the unstable housewife?" Just then another voice joined the fray. "They'll believe me, Sam." We all turned to see Nancy standing in the doorway, her face ashen. "I can't do this anymore," she said, her voice trembling. "I thought I was helping you, but this is wrong." Sam's face contorted with rage. "Mother, what are you doing here? Stay out of this." Nancy shook her head, tears in her eyes. "No, Sam, I'm calling Lisa right now. We're going to tell Mia everything." As if on cue, my phone buzzed again. This time it was a video call from an unknown number. With shaking hands, I answered it. Lisa's face appeared on the screen, her eyes red-rimmed. "Mia," she said, her voice hoarse. "There's something you need to know. Sam, he's been lying to all of us." Over the next few minutes, as Sam raged and threatened, the truth came pouring out. Lisa hadn't known Sam was married when their affair began. When she found out, Sam had spun a tale of an abusive, unstable wife. He'd manipulated everyone, Lisa, Nancy, even Emily, playing them against each other to get what he wanted. "He told me he loved me," Lisa sobbed. "That we'd be a family with Emily, but it was all lies. He's been embezzling from the company, Mia. He needed your assets to cover it up before anyone found out." I felt like the ground was crumbling beneath my feet. The extent of Sam's betrayal was staggering. Suddenly, Sam lunged for my phone. "Give me that," he roared. In the chaos that followed, several things happened at once. Emily screamed. Nancy tried to restrain Sam, and I, acting on pure instinct, swung my bag with all my might. It connected with Sam's head with a sickening thud, and he crumpled to the floor. For a moment, we all stood in stunned silence. Then Emily's voice, small but determined, broke through the shock. "Mom," she said, holding up her phone. "I got it all. Every word, every confession, it's over." As sirens wailed in the distance, Nancy must have called the police. I pulled Emily close, my mind reeling. We'd won, but at what cost? Our lives would never be the same. As I held my daughter, I realized this wasn't the end. It was just the beginning of a new, uncertain chapter in our lives. The next few hours passed in a blur of police sirens, questioning, and barely contained chaos. As dawn broke, I found myself sitting in our living room, surrounded by officers and a sea of evidence. Emily sat beside me, her hand clutched tightly in mine, while Sam was escorted out in handcuffs, shouting threats and accusations. Just when I thought the storm had passed, Emily turned to me, her eyes filled with a mix of determination and fear. "Mom," she whispered, "there's something I need to tell you, about everything that's happened." My heart clenched. What more could there possibly be? "What is it, sweetie?" Emily took a deep breath. It wasn't just luck or coincidence that we uncovered Dad's plans. I've been working on this for months, ever since I overheard him talking to Grandma Nancy about getting rid of you. I felt the room spin. Months? But how? I planted bugs in Dad's office, Emily confessed, her voice barely audible. I hacked his emails, his phone. I even pretended to be on his side sometimes to get more information. The realization hit me like a tidal wave. All those times Emily had seemed distant, all those secret conversations with Sam, it had all been part of her plan. Oh, Emily, I breathed, torn between pride and horror. You shouldn't have had to do that. You're just a child. She shook her head fiercely. No, Mom, I'm not just a child. I'm your daughter, and I wasn't going to let him destroy our family. Before I could respond, a detective approached us. Mrs. Anderson, we need to talk about the evidence your daughter has collected. Some of it, well, it might not be admissible in court due to how it was obtained. My blood ran cold. What are you saying? The detective sighed. Your husband's lawyer could argue that the evidence was collected illegally. It could potentially be thrown out. Emily jumped to her feet. No, you can't let him get away with this. I did what I had to do. As the detective tried to calm Emily down, I felt a presence behind me. It was Nancy, her face drawn and pale. Mia, she said softly, I know I have no right to ask this, but please, let me help. I can testify against Sam. I know everything he was planning. I stared at her, conflicting emotions warring within me. This woman had been my enemy for so long, had helped Sam plot against me. But now, she might be our only hope. Why? I asked, my voice hoarse. Why would you turn against your own son? Nancy's eyes filled with tears. Because what he did was wrong. And because I see now how much damage I've done. To you, to Emily, to this family. I want to make it right. As I grappled with this unexpected turn of events, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Lisa. Mia, I'm so sorry for everything. I want to help. I have proof of Sam's embezzlement. Meet me at the cafe in an hour? I showed the message to the detective, who nodded grimly. This could be the break we need. But Mrs. Anderson, you need to understand the risks. If we pursue this, your whole life will be under scrutiny. Every decision you've made, every action you've taken, it will all come out in court. I looked at Emily, her young face etched with worry and determination. I thought of all she had sacrificed, all she had endured. Then I looked at Nancy, seeing for the first time not an enemy, but a woman who had made terrible mistakes and wanted to atone. In that moment, I knew what I had to do. The path ahead would be difficult, fraught with legal battles and public scrutiny. But for the sake of my daughter, for the truth, I had to see it through. I'll do it, I said, my voice stronger than I felt. Whatever it takes, I'll fight. For Emily, for justice, for our future. As I stood up, ready to face whatever came next, I felt a strength I hadn't known I possessed. Sam had tried to break me, to paint me as unstable and unfit, but he had underestimated me. He had underestimated us all. The battle was far from over, but for the first time in months, I felt hope. Whatever challenges lay ahead, I knew I wouldn't face them alone. With Emily by my side and unexpected allies in Nancy and Lisa, I was ready to reclaim my life and my dignity. Let Sam and his lawyers do their worst. We had the truth on our side, and I was done being a victim. It was time to become a fighter. The courtroom fell silent as the judge prepared to deliver the verdict. I sat there, my heart pounding, Emily's hand clasped tightly in mine. The past few months had been a whirlwind of legal battles, media scrutiny, and emotional turmoil. But now, finally, it was all coming to an end. In the case of the state versus Samuel Anderson, the judge began, her voice echoing through the packed room, this court finds the defendant guilty on all charges. A collective gasp rippled through the courtroom. I felt Emily's grip tighten, heard her whispered yes beside me, but I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. It was over. We'd won. As the judge continued, listing Sam's crimes, embezzlement, conspiracy, attempted fraud, I found my gaze drawn to him. The man I'd loved for 14 years, the father of my child, sat there, his face ashen, all pretense of charm and innocence stripped away. When the sentencing was announced, 15 years in prison, Sam finally looked at me. In his eyes I saw a flicker of the man I'd once known, quickly extinguished by a cold hatred that made me shudder. Outside the courthouse, surrounded by a sea of reporters and flashing cameras, I felt oddly calm. Emily stood beside me, her chin raised defiantly, while Nancy hung back, her face a mask of shame and regret. "Mrs. Anderson," a reporter called out, "how does it feel to have your name cleared?" I took a deep breath, thinking of all we'd been through. "It feels liberating," I said, my voice stronger than I'd expected. "But this isn't just about clearing my name. It's about justice, about standing up to those who abuse their power and betray the trust of others." As we made our way through the crowd, I caught sight of Lisa. Our eyes met, and she gave me a small, sad smile. In that moment, I realized that we were all victims of Sam's manipulation, all scarred by his betrayal. Later that evening, as Emily and I sat in our new apartment, a fresh start, away from the memories of our old life, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. "Mom," Emily said softly, "I'm sorry for all the secrecy, for not telling you everything from the beginning. I wanted to protect you." I pulled her close, marveling at her strength and maturity. "Oh, sweetheart, you have nothing to apologize for. You saved us both." A knock at the door interrupted us. To my surprise, it was Nancy, looking older and more vulnerable than I'd ever seen her. "Mia," she said, her voice trembling, "I know I have no right to be here, but I wanted to thank you for allowing me to testify, and to apologize for everything." I studied her for a moment, seeing not the manipulative mother-in-law I'd known for years, but a broken woman seeking redemption. "Nancy," I said slowly, "what you did was wrong. But in the end, you chose to do the right thing. That counts for something." As Nancy left, wiping tears from her eyes, I turned back to Emily. "Well," I said, managing a smile, "it looks like it's just you and me now, kiddo. What do you say we order some pizza and start planning our future?" Emily grinned, a spark of her old self shining through. "Can we get extra cheese?" I laughed, feeling lighter than I had in months. "Extra cheese it is." As we sat there, eating pizza and talking about everything and nothing, I realized that this moment of simple joy with my daughter was what I'd been fighting for all along. Sam had tried to take everything from me, but he'd failed. I was stronger than he'd ever imagined, and so was Emily. The road ahead wouldn't be easy. There would be challenges, setbacks, days when the weight of what we'd been through would feel overwhelming. But we'd face it together, mother and daughter, survivors and fighters. As I looked at Emily, her face animated as she talked about her plans for the future, I felt a surge of pride and love so strong it almost took my breath away. We'd been through hell, but we'd emerged stronger, wiser, and more united than ever. Sam had underestimated us both. He'd thought he could break us, control us, mold us into what he wanted us to be. But in the end, it was his world that had crumbled, while ours, battered but unbroken, remained standing. As the night wore on and Emily drifted off to sleep on the couch, I stood by the window, looking out at the city lights. For the first time in years, I felt truly free. Free to be myself, to love my daughter, to build the life we deserved. Sam had tried to write our story, but we'd taken back the pen. And now, finally, we were ready to start a new chapter. One filled with hope, strength, and the unbreakable bond between a mother and her daughter. Mother and her daughter. Mother and her daughter. Mother and her daughter.